Hello, and welcome back to ATC Educational Services Homeschool Teacher Training Academy. Let's jump right in to assessing your child's readiness to read. If your child is already reading, there are going to be things about print awareness and also concepts of print that we will talk about in this section. You will learn something new or affirm your knowledge. All this is going to be very important background knowledge, which is called schema, that will help in future lessons. I'm actually using the word schema very intentionally. It is important to teach reading and especially reading comprehension because schema is a reader's background knowledge. It is the information that a person knows. It's the people they know, the places they've been, the books they read. All of this is your schema. And readers actually use their schema or their background knowledge to help them to understand and make sense of what they're reading. Let's recap our takeaway from our first lesson about how children learn to read. From my experience as an educator for over 30 years in the classroom and with working with homeschool families, yes, there are a few students that will learn to read naturally without direct explicit phonic instruction. The research actually shows that's probably about 1 to 7%, just as an estimate. However, while a small percentage of students figure out how to decode words on their own without explicit phonic instructions, there is a widespread consensus in research community that early reading instruction in English should emphasize a very systematic phonics approach. There is a word you're going to hear often, and that word is differentiation. Differentiation just simply means changing it up, which means tailoring instruction to meet individual needs. I mentioned in our last lesson that this was my greatest challenge as a classroom teacher with so many different needs in the classroom. A huge benefit of homeschooling, probably one of the top 3 benefits of homeschooling, is that you're able to differentiate your instruction more effectively. Whether you would differentiate your content, which is actually what you teach, whether you differentiate the process, which is the activities in which the student engages in order to make sense of or master the content that you're teaching, whether you're differentiating the products that you're using, what curriculum, what resources or manipulatives from around your home you're going to utilize, or changing up your learning environment. The use of ongoing assessment and flexibility makes this a successful approach to instruction in your homeschool. While there is not a one-size-fits-all, there are certain methods that need to be used in certain conditions of learning. First of all, we know kids are different. They're different in the way that they are wired and the pace at which they learn. A systematic phonics program can even still benefit those students that appear to learn naturally because there may be gaps in their knowledge of spelling patterns or words that they haven't even encountered yet. Of course, phonics instruction, like all teaching, can and should be differentiated to meet the needs of individual students where they are. This goes for everything from math to everything else that you're teaching. If a student can demonstrate mastery of a sound, there's no need to continue practicing that sound. He or she can move on to the next one. Recognize that some learners may need lots and lots of repetition over long periods of time. Others are going to pick things up quickly. They may pick some things up quickly, but not other things. And this is why continually assessing, planning, and teaching, evaluating as you're actually teaching your child is critical. So here's the big question. Is my child ready to read? Did I overlook important concepts of print, also referred to as print awareness? Helping my children learn to read was probably one of the greatest joys of homeschooling. There is nothing more fulfilling or rewarding than actually watching your child finally read and knowing you taught them. I happened to find this picture of Amelia when she had received a birthday card in the mail from her aunt, and she was so excited that she could actually read the card. Understanding when your child is ready to read doesn't have to be a mystery. Children will learn to read at their own pace, and there's no set age that this happens to happen. You can assess your child by looking for a few common signs of readiness, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. What is print awareness exactly? Also, I've already told you that that's also often referred to as concepts of print. Well, let me tell you a little story. We were driving down the road one day, and I remember I heard my daughter Amelia say, "Eat fresh." She may have only been like 3 years old. She was always interested in jingles from commercials, and I thought it was really funny. And then I looked up and I saw that we had just passed a sign that read Subway. If you're not from this area, Subway is a fast food sub sandwich restaurant, and they have a jingle that has "Eat Fresh" in their jingle. So she associated the print with a message. She obviously wasn't decoding the word Subway, but she knew that what that was carried some sort of message. And she knew it was a place to eat fresh food, and particularly subs. Another example of this would be kids seeing an M sign. They're not actually decoding the word McDonald's, but they recognize that that means McDonald's. And so this is what we refer to as an example of concept of print or print awareness. Your child may be ready to read if they show interest in words and letters. Your child may point to capital letters and identify them. They may recognize some lowercase letters and know the alphabet song. You may have toys. I remember I used to find at consignment stores and consignment sales, I would find a lot of the Leapfrog toys, which were great. And they would recognize certain letters, or we had magnetic letters. We had puzzles with letters. And you start noticing that when your child is actually recognizing the letters and even the letters in their own name. And so another common sign that your child is ready to read is, like we just said, print awareness. That means that they understand that the letters on the page or the letters wherever they are convey a message. And the foundation of all other literacy learning builds upon this knowledge. Another thing is phonological awareness. A good way to tell if they are to some degree aware of sound structure is to see if they can rhyme words, simple words. You may have to do it with them to practice to help show them. They can rhyme simple words, so they can clap out, certain syllables and identify beginning and ending sounds in a word. So those are all things that are common signs that your child is ready. I'm not sure if I cut myself off, but I was saying that those are all common signs that your child is ready to read. And so some ideas for developing print awareness in your home. Your children need to know that books are read from left to right and top to bottom. Print may be accompanied by pictures or graphics, and that the purpose of reading is to gain meaning from the text and to understand the ideas that the words convey. For example, you can label objects in your home. You can use index cards, or Dollar Tree has name tags and other things for labeling in their school section, or use sentence strips, anything. You can begin with board books. You can move to predictable books. You can use rhyming books, nursery rhymes that will help with phonological awareness. One of the favorite things that I would do in a classroom that I later implemented in my home is that we would play Read the House. And you can change this up however you want to. Remember, you can differentiate it to your situation. Have your child put on a silly hat, or dress up in girls sometimes like to put on, and boys like to dress up in certain costumes. Maybe be a pirate or a princess, and get a magic wand, put on some silly glasses, and walk around the house and point to the different things that you have labeled, and to help them to recognize that this is chair, this is couch, this is a desk, this is a lamp, this is a refrigerator. They might walk to your refrigerator, and if your house, y'all call it the fridge, kind of using slang, you can say, you know what, that is the fridge, but let's look at this. This word starts with an R. And that means that this word is refrigerator, refrigerator. And just begin to gently point out little things like that. You can also play it outside. Then you can actually, once they have mastered those things in your house, maybe you just limit it to one room Maybe you do it in your whole house. It depends on the size of your home. You can do it outside. Label the trees, label the grass, label the driveway, whatever it is that you have in your yard, toys, junk, whatever it is, you can just label it. Then you collect all those cards and then let them go run and put it at the right spot. You may have to help them. They eventually will be able to do it on their own. For the really active kid, they may need to hop like a bunny or do whatever, cartwheels on the way. You differentiate it to meet the needs of your child. The way that you reinforce the forms and functions of print is by using things and by labeling things, and point them out in your home, point them out on signs as you're traveling down the road, labels, posters, calendars, whatever type of print that you have in your house. And so lots of this print awareness can happen on the road when you are finding letters or looking for things on license plates, on signs. We love, even when my kids were older in their teenage years, we would still play the letter name, see who could get the Z first, starting with A. So all those are things that you can do like while you're actually in the car. And all of these activities are helping to build vocabulary that will later help them when they begin, when you actually begin your formal teaching, because you're actually building that schema, you're building that background that's necessary. You don't need to make your home look like a classroom, but you can use a few helpful posters here and there. You can place them inside a door, or you can just pull them out whenever you need them. Dollar Tree even has a whole bunch in the school section. Even Walmart, school supply stores. You don't actually even have to go to a teacher supply store, but if you happen to have one in your area, those are handy too. But I was just recently at the Dollar Tree and I saw that they had these really cute pointers, and of course you can make your own. You could use a princess one, you can use a ruler, you can use a fly swatter, you can use anything, but by building vocabulary is so important. Even things like on our days of the week calendar, when every day we would say, okay, today is Monday. What was yesterday? What will tomorrow be? Until eventually they can say, today is Monday, yesterday was Sunday, tomorrow will be Tuesday. We used all sorts of things to help build vocabulary. And we also, this has nothing to do with reading per se, but it helps with building a lot of vocabulary that's important for reading, is that we would count each day of school, and I would let my kids know that on our 100th day of school, we would have some kind of celebration. And you can decide, what you want to do for that. It could be an ice cream sundae with 100 toppings, or whatever it is that you decide that would be a fun reward. They could come up with something that they want to do. And once we got up to 10 straws, I just used straws because I had them at my house. You can use whatever that you have in your house. You don't have to pay a ton of money for expensive manipulatives. But once we got up to 10 straws, I would put a rubber band around those, and I would say, now we have one bundle of 10. And 10 can't live in the ones house or the ones place, so we're going to move it over to the 10's place. And now how many 10s do we have? We have 1 10. And we have 0 ones on our 10th day of school. And we would keep on going until, for example, we got to the 39th day. And I would say, we have 3 10s and 9 ones. And we would count by 10 and say 10, 20, 30. And then we can count by the ones. And we know we have 3 10s and 9 ones. We got 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. You can see why that's important, because that's exactly what you do when you're counting dimes and pennies. And then you will go back and you can say things like, what's going to happen tomorrow? We're at 39 today. What's going to happen tomorrow? And by this time, a lot of kids have figured out, we're going to have 40. We're going to bundle those up and we're going to move them over to the 10s house. And now we have 4 10s and we'll have 0 ones. But building all this language is vital to the beginning to read, and to building that schema and background knowledge, because if a kid doesn't understand the words first and last and middle, then that's going to make them not understand when you say point to the first letter in the word. They're not going to know what that means. Reading aloud to your child is one of the most important things that you can do for early literacy learning, and this should be done daily. Reinforce the forms and functions of print. Point to them out, like I said earlier. Everywhere you go, everywhere you see. If when you're reading little books, you can say, where's the first duck? Where's the last duck? Where's the middle duck? And just talk about it. Have, connect it to their real life. Hey, have we seen ducks before? Do you want to go see if we can find some ducks? If these kind of things don't come easy to you, I encourage you to just Google 5 in a row. 5 in a row is one of my favorite early literacy programs. You don't need an early literacy program for a preschooler, but if these kind of things don't come natural to you, this will help. It's more scripted to help you to know the types of things to do with your child. And there's also even before 5 in the row for 2 and 3 year olds, helping you to build literacy if those things don't come as natural to you, especially sometimes very smart, linear, logical people, they don't always think about some of the creative things that you can do. But some of the creative people like me, we don't know how to balance our checkbook because we're just all different. And so when should you begin reading aloud? Well, I began reading to mine in the womb. And we read board books over and over again, like Goodnight Moon and 5 Little Ducks. And Miss Lucy had a baby. His name was Tiny Tim. She put him in the bathtub to see if he could swim. And they started clapping the rhythms and all those kinds of things. But it's also important that your child can demonstrate listening comprehension. Paying attention to your child's ability to retell familiar stories in their own words, even acting them out. And a child who is ready to read should also know how to actually hold the book and to actually turn the pages in the right way and understand left to right progression of sentences. And these are all called concepts of print. And by reading to your child every day, you help develop motivation. And because motivation is an essential component of learning to read, and children must be enthusiastic or interested in reading before they're going to be able to put the effort into learning how to read. For some students, this comes easy. They love books. For other students, they're not interested at all. They might be interested in taking the book and throwing it or building with it, but they're just not really interested in the story. So you're going to have to come up with creative ways. Find out what things they're interested in. If they're interested in tractors, you try to find as many books with tractors as possible. If they're interested in trains or dinosaurs, you try to find books that deal with those things to help them to get excited about it. These are just some of our favorite board books, and the board books are they're literally like boards, and they're thicker, and so they're great for even babies and toddlers because they can actually chew on them and slobber on them, and you can wipe them off. They're also, the print is normally bigger, and so these are fun and they're more sturdy. So it's really important to start off with these board books. And if you say, well, I didn't really do enough of this, and that's okay. Start with where you're at, and I would suggest starting with some highly predictable books, or rhyming books, even appropriate comic books. Your local librarian can actually help you with this. You just say, hey, can you help me find some predictable books? Like Give a Mouse a Cookie. That's one example of a highly predictable book. My favorite one is called I Went Walking. And in a later video, I'm actually going to use that book to demonstrate how you actually teach some reading strategies, making predictions and confirming and those kinds of things by using a real live book. But that's going to come later in one of the later videos. And so TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods, Dollar Tree, and Ross even have great options for board books and other books. And get these as birthday presents or holiday presents. They make great gifts, for your child. And in a later lesson, I will show you how to use the predictable books. Like I said, I'm not sure if my video messed up, so I will be using a book called While You're Walking. It may or may not have recorded that. And I really don't want to record this over again. So if you will show me some mercy and grace, I will love you. Okay. So how do you assess these concepts of print, or this print awareness? Well, you can assess these things informally in your day-to-day literacy immersion, or you can assess them formally. Both types of assessment work during this time. And so as you assess these things, pay careful attention. For example, if your child doesn't know the words front and back, you may have to stop there and you may have to play a game like, where is your front? Where is your back? Your bumper where you sit is on your back side. play the hokey pokey, put your front side in, put your front side back. If for kids who need lots of action and moving around, where's the front door? Where's the back door? Can you jump to the front door? Can you jump to the back door? I mean, you can just make up stuff like off your head. Go find the leaf in the front yard. Go find a stick in the backyard. Go put this letter in the mailbox. Stand in front of the mailbox. Stand behind the mailbox. Lay out rocks and say, which is the first rock? Which is the last rock? Which is a middle rock? Just use things, like I said, over and over again. You don't have to pay tons of money for expensive manipulatives. And so some kids are going to get these things right away the first time they hear them. Other kids are going to need lots and lots of repetition. I know for me, I needed lots of repetition if I wasn't learning something in a multisensory way. And hang on to that thought, because we're going to be talking about the importance of multisensory teaching when you're doing your formal reading instruction, and that's going to come a little bit later on. And so now let's take this knowledge that they have learned about front, back, middle, in, out, all these different words, and relate it to books. And so if you look over on the left-hand side of the screen, it says, here are some sample activities that you can do for assessing print awareness. Just give a child a book and ask them, show me the front of the book. Show me the back of the book. Where are we supposed to start reading? Can you show me a letter? Can you show me a word? Take your fingers and show them how to frame a letter, how to frame a word, and then let them do it. Can you frame a letter? Can you frame a word? And where's the first word in a sentence? Where's the last word in the sentence? Do you see a punctuation mark? Do you know what this is called? That's called a period, a capital letter, a lowercase letter. All these are different things that you can assess with just giving them a book and asking them these questions. Where is the title of the book? Do you know what this book's about? Do you know what the title is? You can read titles on books in your home or at the library. I want to stop right here and take a little commercial break to mention the reading and writing connection. So children learn to use symbols and combining their oral language, their pictures, their print, and their play into making meaning and expressing ideas. And you can just watch this as they're playing. From their initial experiences and interactions with other adults and with other children, kids actually begin to read words, process letter-sound relationships, and acquire substantial knowledge of our alphabet system. And so instead of reading and writing being an all-or-nothing phenomenon that just happens, reading and writing happens on a developmental continuum. After a few years of teaching in the classroom, I decided that I was going to go to graduate school. So I applied for graduate school at North Carolina State University while I was teaching. And I began taking classes to learn more about curriculum and instruction, and especially a concentration in reading. And I often tell moms that seem frustrated about their teaching and their kids just don't seem to be, grasping things and retaining things. I tell them to think about this analogy. Think about clay or mud. If you throw it up on your ceiling, it's not going to probably all stick. A little bit's going to stick. I actually, when I'm have a parent in my home and I'm working with them, I actually point to our ceiling, and you see up there? Well, that's when my daughter Amelia decided to make some kind of slime. And when she decided that she was going to throw it up on the ceiling, and obviously if you see that little red spot, it's not blood, even though that's what it looks like. It's just that's where some of the dye stuck to the ceiling. And it's just like when you throw mud, some's going to stick, some's going to not stick. You keep throwing it, you keep throwing it, you keep throwing it, and more is going to stick each time. And so this is one of those things that I learned in grad school that really stuck to me and stuck with me because it resonated with me about my role as a teacher in the classroom. And then now it resonates with me as a homeschool teacher. And I think it's something that's important for you to know. Now, if you would have asked me a second ago before I created this slide, can you tell me the conditions of learning, the 8 conditions of learning by Brian Camborn? I would probably say, well, I know there's immersion, and I know that there's, this and that, but I probably wouldn't be able to name all of these. But you know what? I was able to Google it. It took me a little while because I couldn't remember the guy's name, and I kept thinking it was Clay something, but I finally, I kept Googling different things, and I came up with Brian Camborne, and I was like, yes, that was him. That's who I learned. This was, goodness, 30 years ago. And so Brian Camborne in 1988, which is when I actually graduated from high school, proposed that children acquire oral and written language most easily when there are certain conditions are present in their environments. And this happens both home and at school. And so for you, since your home is your school, that's all you have to worry about. And so I'm going to talk to you about these conditions of learning. There's immersion, demonstration, engagement, expectation, responsibility, approximation, use, and response. And so how can you use Camborne's conditions of literacy to help development and make the conditions of learning present in your own homeschool? Let's talk about immersion. First of all, children need to be surrounded by interesting and high-quality children's books and literature, all kinds of texts, and that can be charts, it can be labels, it can be newspapers, it can be magazines, just immersed in all kinds of print. It's important that you read to them daily. We've already talked about the importance of read alouds. And even once your child begins to read, it's important for you to still read to them, because often listening comprehension can be at a higher level than what they could actually read independently, especially in the beginning developmental stages. And so just read every day to your child, sing to them, play word games, and use movement and dance to generate just lively engagement. I remember my kids loved to do teddy bear, turn around, teddy bear, touch the ground, teddy bear, go upstairs, just all kinds of things. You can Google and you can find these online to do. You don't have to, you're like, oh, I don't know any of those. Well, you know the Itsy Bitsy Spider probably, and there's several different little rhymes that you can do, and just make up your own silly motions to them. And so the second condition of learning that's important after immersion is demonstration. You need to model reading and writing for your children. You need to let them see you writing down notes and writing letters, writing stories, when you're writing down recipes and lists, even if you're typing, on your computer, letting them know that you're making notes. If you happen to have a printer, you can print it out so that they can see that what you just typed on the keyboard is what is on the paper. Making your list of things to do. All those things are important to make sure that your kids notice that you are reading to yourself, and that you are writing, that you're doing it for pleasure, you're doing it for information, you do it for directions and for other purposes. And show them how to hold a book, show them how to turn the pages and read aloud. So that's immersion and demonstration. And the next condition of learning that's important is engagement. The next condition of learning is engagement. Help your child to become an active learner, and help your child to see themselves as a potential reader and writer, and set up a risk-free environment where they can experiment with language and literacy, and provide easy access to paper and pencils and crayons and markers. You can even have like a little table that's set up that just has a variety of markers and different kinds of things that they can use to experiment with reading and writing. Our next condition of learning is expectation. So expectation, set realistic expectations for language and literacy development. Become familiar with developmental stages of emergent literacy, some of the things that we've already covered so far in this lesson, and support your child with those appropriate tasks, and expect that they will become accomplished readers and writers over time when given them the right tools that they need to be successful. And we'll be talking about those a little bit later. And the next condition of learning is responsibility. Give your children choices about books to read. Set up the environment to promote self-direction. One of the things that we did is I bought a little, had a little basket. It's kind of an oval shaped basket from Dollar Tree that had a handle on it. And I would just take and I would put different books in that for them to have access to, even if they're just sitting there looking at the pages. And then as they go through the stages, I would have books in there that would be at their reading level so that they could practice. We called it deer time, drop everything and read. And while they were reading, I would read. And sometimes if they wanted me to read to them, I would read to them. If they wanted to read themselves, they would read to them to themselves. So it's very important that you have easy access for books and material for them to read, and teaching them how to take care of them. You have to teach your children also about writing, and that we don't write on the walls. We write on this thing. I still to this day, and I'm so thankful that I've left them there. When my daughter Amelia learned how to make a star, I found little stars all over the house where I guess she would just decide, I'm going to practice and I'm going to make a little star here. A lot of them have faded away, but even on the column in my living room, just right over there, there's still a little star that she made. And now that she's away at college, those are very special little memories to me. And so congratulate them on their accomplishment. My first reaction in the flesh was, I can't believe you just wrote on my wall. But thankfully I stopped and I responded properly. And I was like, Amelia, you did such a great job of making that star. You're just getting so good at that. But we don't want to write on the walls. Let's get out some paper. And I took out paper and I'm like, here, you can do it with here. Let's get you some different markers and you can do it with these. Remember, we don't write on the walls. We want to keep those clean. However you want to explain it is fine. It's important to guide them gently into accuracy, and soon they're going to begin to self-correct, themselves. And we'll be talking about that later as well. So the other one is, so that was approximation, and then use. So use, create a climate for functional and meaningful uses of oral and written language, and encourage your children to read along with you, help you write notes, help you write letters. At the grocery store, give them a list so that they can check things off. Okay, we just got the milk. Can you check that off? We just got the bread. Can you check that off? We just got the grapes. Can you check that off? And let them be involved with writing activities. And along the same line as reading and writing, you need to make sure that you're engaging in lots of conversation. And so our last condition of learning is your response. This one can sometimes be challenging. I'm not saying all these things are easy, especially if you have lots of children, and especially if you have one that just talks. But it is important to listen to your children and to welcome their comments and their questions, even if it's the 1,500th time that they have asked the same question, and just extend their use of oral and written language. And celebrate the enormous language and literacy learning that's taken place. So all these things are so critical to make sure that you have set up the environment, the correct conditions of learning for your child to feel successful. You may be saying, I'm more overwhelmed and confused with all this information that you've given us. Well, hang tight. There's a reason behind this background information, this schema that I have just given you. There is a systematic method that I'm going through that's going to help you to be prepared to understand what we're going to be covering next. So hang tight, and we'll be ready for our next lessons. In our next lesson, what are the different methods? And how do I know which method is best for my child? So in what are the different methods, we're going to find out what does the research say about the different message and how they actually play out in practice. And how do I know which method is best for my child? And we're going to talk about the strategies to use, multi-sensory teaching, and how to choose the right curriculum that's going to be best for your child. Well, congratulations on the completion of the first phase of this comprehensive professional development course. I'll see you in the next lesson. Don't forget, You can find me on TPT or Teachers Pay Teachers. You can just do a search for ATC Educational Services to find my about 70-page book on choosing and using curriculum. It's a complete visual homeschool guidebook to homeschooling. You can go on to the next lesson, or you can wait to do that later on this evening, or plan a day the rest of this week. But make sure you keep going. Also, let your child know. Say, I'm learning something new. Mommies or daddy, whoever you are, you're just saying, hey, I'm learning something new. And let them see that's a condition of learning. You're letting them know that you are an active learner and you're an ongoing learner. Because after all, that should be your number one goal in being a homeschool family, is to teach your child how to be a learner.